Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Siren's Betrayal. By the time Holly Arnold stepped off the ferry at the Isle of Wight, a cold wind was blowing in from the sea. The island felt steeped in eerie silence, as though it were caught in the breath before a storm. She was there for a much-needed escape from the weight of her life back in the city. After weeks of staring into her computer screen, poring over one unsolvable case after another, the small cottage by the cliffs was meant to be her retreat. But instead of solace, a growing sense of unease settled over her. The village was quaint, picturesque even, but its residents kept their heads down, eyes averted, as if avoiding some unspoken truth. Whispers of strange happenings along the coast had started to trickle, and since she'd arrived a fisherman had vanished a week ago, and before him another. There were rumors about the sea, the old ones, about things that called from the depths when the moon hung high in the sky. But Holly, hardened by her work as a criminal investigator, shrugged off the tales as local superstition. Her cottage was perched near the edge of the cliffs, overlooking the churning waves of the English Channel. It should have been peaceful. But that first night, as Holly lay in bed, the sound of the sea lulled her into a restless sleep where she dreamt of voices sweet, melodic, and sad echoing across the water. When she awoke, her sheets were tangled, and the taste of salt lingered on her lips. She tried to push the dream away as nothing more than her mind playing tricks on her, but the following morning something drew her toward the shore. The salty breeze whipped her hair as she descended the narrow path, the rocky beach below looming like a jagged scar against the frothy tide. As she reached the water's edge, her gaze was drawn to a boat abandoned on the rocks, its wood splintered and rotting. Her fingers traced its weathered surface, wondering if it had belonged to one of the missing fishermen. It was then that she noticed a figure standing farther along the shore, near a cluster of boulders. A man, his back to her, staring out to sea. His silhouette was tall and wiry, his posture oddly rigid. Something about him felt off. Curiosity and her investigator's instincts drew her forward. As she approached, she called out, "Hey, are you okay?" The man didn't respond, didn't even flinch. His body was drenched, clothes clinging to his thin frame as if he had just walked out of the sea. When she reached him, Holly felt the blood drain from her face. His skin was pallid, slick with an oily sheen, his eyes wide but lifeless. They were no natural shade of green, like the water reflecting the murky depths of the ocean floor. "God," Holly whispered. "Are you?" The man's head jerked, his mouth opening as if to speak, but instead of words, a garbled noise erupted from his throat, something between a groan and a rasping gasp. His lips trembled, revealing sharp, serrated teeth. Holly stumbled back, her heart pounding as the man took a shuffling step forward, his arms twitching at his sides. It was only then that she saw the truth. His hands, where human skin should have been, were webbed, his fingers gnarled and claw-like. Her stomach lurched. Without thinking, she turned and ran, her boots slipping on the wet stones as she scrambled back toward the path. She could hear him following, the sound of his uneven steps squelching against the sand. But when she reached the top of the cliff and glanced back, the man had vanished into the mist. That night, Holly sat at her kitchen table, the door bolted, a glass of whiskey shaking in her hand. What had she seen? What was happening on this island? She tried to rationalize it: an illness, a deformity, but nothing fit. The next day, Holly met with an old local woman named Edith, who worked at the village pub. Over a pint, Holly asked about the disappearances. Edith hesitated at first, but eventually her wrinkled hands gripped Holly's arm tightly as she leaned in close. "It's the sea that took them," she whispered. "Or rather, what lies beneath it." Holly's skepticism wavered, but she pressed for more. Edith's voice shook as she spoke of an ancient legend, the story of a fisherman, centuries ago, who had fallen in love with a siren. The siren, as beautiful as she was dangerous, had lured him to the rocks with her song. But instead of the bliss he'd longed for, her kiss had brought a curse. He had been transformed, piece by piece, into something monstrous, half man, half sea creature, bound forever to the tides. And as the years passed, the siren returned for more, collecting the souls of those foolish enough to venture too close to her domain. "The men who disappear, they aren't taken," Edith said, her voice barely a whisper. They had changed. Holly tried to dismiss the old woman's words as mere folklore, but she couldn't shake the memory of the creature she had seen on the shore. Something was wrong here. Something terrible. Determined to find answers, Holly returned to the cliffs that evening. The air was heavy with the scent of brine, and the sky had darkened, storm clouds swirling overhead. She made her way to the water's edge, the waves crashing violently against the rocks. It was there she saw her rising from the surf, her skin pale as the moonlight, her hair long and dark, dripping with seaweed. The Siren. Her eyes were wide and unblinking, lips curved in a smile that chilled Holly to the bone. She was hauntingly beautiful, yet something about her presence was wrong, twisted. The Siren's voice filled the air, melodic and entrancing. "You seek answers, Holly Arnold," she sang softly, stepping onto the rocks. "But the truth is darker than you can imagine." Holly froze, the Siren's song weaving through her mind, tugging at her every thought. She could feel it pulling her forward, toward the edge, toward the cold embrace of the sea. But something within her fought back, the will to survive, to resist. "What are you?" Holly's voice was hoarse, barely audible over the roar of the waves. The Siren tilted her head, her smile widening. "I am what the sea made me," she whispered. "And you are about to join them." Before Holly could react, the Siren lunged, her fingers cold and sharp like daggers as they latched onto Holly's wrist. She pulled her into the surf, the icy water swallowing her whole. Holly struggled, kicking and thrashing, but the Siren was impossibly strong. Beneath the surface, Holly could see figures, men, grotesque and twisted, their bodies half human, half fish, their eyes glowing in the dark water. They were the missing fishermen, transformed. Just as Holly's vision began to fade, she felt a sharp pain in her chest, a burning sensation that spread through her veins. The Siren's curse. She had become the next victim. But as her body changed, as the scales began to creep over her skin and her lungs filled with salt water, a fire of rage ignited within Holly. She would not succumb. She would fight, even as the sea tried to claim her. The last thing she heard was the Siren's laughter echoing through the depths as the transformation took hold. But Holly Arnold, even now, is out there, lurking beneath the waves, a creature of the deep. And unlike the others, she remembers who she was. Holly had once fought against monsters, inhuman skin murderers, thieves, liars, but now, as her body twisted beneath the ocean's pull, she had become one herself. Her fingers fused into webbed claws, her spine arched painfully, and her legs, once strong and agile, melded into a powerful tail, slick with scales that shimmered like moonlight. The agony of transformation was matched only by the clarity that flooded her mind. She was not dead. She was not mindless like the others. Holly Arnold still had her will. She swam deeper, away from the rocks, trying to understand what she had become. Her lungs no longer gasped for air. The sea, once so threatening, now felt like her domain. And within her there was a hunger she had never known. Her mouth tasted of salt and blood, the Siren's curse running through her veins, warping her senses, but not her soul. The fishermen, the others, swam beside her, grotesque and disfigured. They were mindless slaves to the Siren's call, their movements jerky and desperate, as if they had long ago forgotten what it was to be human. Their hollow eyes were fixed on the dark horizon, waiting, yearning for the command to serve their mistress again. But Holly was different. She could feel it in every fiber of her being. The Siren's curse had not consumed her mind as it had with the others. Was it because she had resisted the song? Or perhaps, Holly thought grimly, the curse needed time to fully take hold. Time she didn't intend to waste. Above her, the Siren swam effortlessly, her hair trailing like dark tendrils through the water, her gaze fixed on the distant shore. Holly's heart burned with hatred, but she knew she couldn't face the creature yet. Not until she understood the full extent of her new abilities and her new curse. The waters around the Isle of Wight were her cage now. She was bound to the Siren's realm, unable to leave the sea for long. But Holly was nothing if not resourceful. And if there was a way to reverse the curse or destroy the Siren, she would find it. Days passed, though time moved strangely beneath the waves. Holly swam with the other creatures, watching, learning. She explored the underwater caverns where they hid from the sun, saw the wrecks of ancient ships, their rotting hulls home to crabs and seaweed, and the bones of those lost to the siren song scattered across the seabed. The other cursed men, the former fishermen, remained docile, trapped in their monstrous forms, waiting for the siren's call. They were beyond saving, but Holly could feel something stirring inside her. She was stronger, faster than she had ever been on land. Her senses were heightened, able to hear the faintest ripple in the water, the heartbeat of a fish miles away. The transformation had given her the strength of the sea. But it also came with a darkness, a gnawing hunger that grew stronger by the day and urged to hunt, to kill. Every night Holly would rise to the surface, her eyes scanning the shore, watching the life she could no longer return to. She could hear the distant whispers of the village, see the flickering lights in the windows of the homes. No one knew she was still out there, that she had become something more terrible than any of them could imagine. But Holly had a plan, and she wouldn't be alone for long. One evening, she returned to the shore, feeling the shift in the tides that signaled the siren's next move. Holly knew it was time. She wasn't the only one watching the land. Her curse had drawn others like her from the depths. She could sense them, the cursed men who had once been fishermen, their twisted bodies rising from the depths in answer to the siren's call. They had no choice but to obey her. But Holly did. That night the siren sang her deadly song, luring a new victim to the cliffs. A young man, alone by the beach, was already drawn to the water, mesmerized by her voice. He staggered down the shore, the wind swirling, the sea's waves churning violently. Holly's heart raced. She couldn't let another innocent be lost. Before the siren could claim her prize, Holly shot through the water, propelling herself toward the shore. With her newfound speed, she reached the young man just as his foot touched the water, his eyes glazed and unfocused, entranced by the siren's call. Grabbing him by the arm, Holly pulled him away from the tide with all the force she could muster. He gasped as if waking from a dream, eyes wide as he took in the sight of her, scales glinting under the moonlight, claws wrapped around his wrist. He stumbled back in horror. You're one of them," he choked. "I'm not like them," Holly hissed, her voice low, trying to keep him from panicking. "Listen to me, you have to get out of here, now," but it was too late. The siren had seen what Holly had done, and her song changed. The haunting melody turned sharper, angrier, sending the cursed men surging from the depths toward the shore. They moved with terrifying speed, their grotesque forms breaking the surface, claws outstretched toward Holly and the man she had tried to save. Holly turned to face the siren, her hatred boiling over. "You won't take him," she snarled, feeling the power in her body coursing like a storm. "You won't take any more of them." The siren's eyes gleamed with malice, her lips curling into a wicked smile. "You belong to me now, Holly Arnold," she sang. "You can't fight what you are," but Holly had already made her choice. She would fight for herself, for the ones the siren had taken, for her very soul. With a fierce roar, Holly leapt into the fray, tearing through the water with the strength of the sea itself, battling the other creatures who once had been men. Her claws slashed through their scaly skin, and though they were many, Holly fought with a fury the siren hadn't expected. The siren, startled by Holly's defiance, retreated to the rocks, her song faltering as Holly's soul overwhelmed the magic that bound her. Holly fought harder, her eyes never leaving the siren, knowing that only one of them would leave this night victorious. With a final, desperate cry, Holly launched herself toward the siren, grasping her with both hands. Their eyes locked, the sea churning violently around them. Holly could feel the curse pulsating through her veins, but it was no longer a chain. It was her power. "You're nothing without your song," Holly growled, her voice fierce. "And I am not your puppet." With a strength born of rage, Holly dragged the siren beneath the waves. The creature's melodic voice turned to shrieks, her nails tearing at Holly's skin as she tried to break free. But Holly was relentless. She held the siren down, deeper and deeper, until the dark, cold depths swallowed them both. The water stilled. Silence followed. When Holly emerged from the sea, the moonlight shimmered on the surface, and the waves lapped gently against the shore. The cursed men were gone, their bodies dissolving back into the ocean, freed from the siren's hold. Holly stood on the beach, her scales still gleaming, but something inside her had shifted. The curse had not left her, but neither had her will. She was something between the sea and the land now, bound to neither and freed from both. She looked back at the quiet village in the distance, then out at the endless sea, feeling the call of both. For now, Holly Arnold was still a creature of the deep, but her mind was her own. And as long as she had her mind, she knew the Siren's betrayal would never claim her. She was still fighting. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.